guys, how you all doing? It's ADHD Girl here, bringing you the ADHD and Me podcast. Coming up on this month's episode, I talk to an ADHD coach, all about the clutter of having ADHD from a physical perspective, aka mess, but also from a mental and emotional perspective too. We're going to be talking about some really interesting stuff, so let's get started. Joining me today, I have Susie. Susie's got a really interesting connection with ADHD, both personally and professionally. I'll hand it over to her to tell us a little bit about what you do, Susie.
Yeah, thank you. So I am a qualified ADHD coach and declutter expert. So I help busy women transform from procrastination to purpose to help them find their space to live by decluttering their lives, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well, with a special focus on those with ADHD.
Yeah, I just find it so interesting because how we met is I saw one of your adverts for a course and I just thought, wow, this is great. This is finally somebody who gets it, that it's not just the physical mess of ADHD, but actually there's the emotional mess. You have experience of having ADHD yourself, or do you know anybody with ADHD? Or
Yeah, so both. So I was diagnosed last summer. I say late in life. I'm not that old, but later in life, shall we say. And I guess, yeah, the people I seem to attract to work with as well seem to be of that ilk. And I guess it's the journey. So for me, I've always been a declutterer, I would say. So I guess the way I've tried to live life, or the way I make things easier for myself, is that kind of assess and simplify on everything from my home to my work to, just the way I live. So that's always been there. And then this diagnosis last year added into the mix. So it's what's prompted me to put this program together, really, because I think a lot of the people I was working with anyway on kind of the decluttering side seem to be similar to me. And then I guess over the last year, it's putting two and two together and thinking, actually, ADHD and clutter just seem to go hand in hand. And like you say, it's not just the physical stuff that could be a problem as well. But yeah, busy brains, emotional dysregulation, everything comes as a package.
do you know what's really interesting though, how you say that you've always been one to assess and declutter? A lot of people meet me and they're like, how can you have ADHD? You're so organized. And I'm like, organization is my coping strategy. If I'm not organized, I don't know where I am. I don't know what's happening. I need something to organize my brain because it doesn't do it naturally.
Yeah, there's something about that kind of refocusing, I think, and just getting everything out of our heads, perhaps, especially as you're talking about in that kind of that mental organization for work and everything. I think sometimes, there's something in there about getting it all out is quite calming, and then we can see what we've got to deal with, and then we can start to work with it. And I think, like you say, some people do it naturally. That's how they have to operate. And some people find it's, if they could do it, it would really help. But it's getting over the hurdle of how do they even start.
And that brings us into talking a little bit about the subject of overwhelm, because I feel like that's one of the biggest hurdles to overcome in terms of decluttering from all aspects, physically, emotionally. It's feeling like everything's getting on top of you and it's too much and you don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem, isn't it? It's knowing where to start, what to start with.
That's it. So would you say that a lot of the people you meet who have these kind of problems, do you think it is overwhelm, or do you think there's other kind of factors that go into why they really struggle with the clutter, or do you think it's just because of the way their brain's organized?
Almost different starting points of where people come. And I guess it's whatever's most most present for them. What is the biggest problem? So some people might come because, like you say, they're overwhelmed. They don't know where to start. Some people come because they think, I just don't have any time. And
that's a
time
factor,
for me is another big topic, because I think there's this whole myth of time that we're fed. Some people come because literal clutter in the home, and they have that sense that if I could just get rid of this, or then I could start to feel better and start to think more clearly. Yeah, I guess lots of different starting places for people. Depends on what's that trigger for needing help. Maybe.
I suppose that's part of your job as well when you're working with people, trying to figure out what it is for them, what their starting point is.
Yeah, and I guess they come at different starting points, and then it's about what is going to be the key that kind of unlocks. Because for me, I think one of the biggest hurdles, if you like, or to get over that procrastination kind of mountain, is to find the tiniest little thing that will get them started. Or it could be the absolute opposite, and finding that biggest thing that's like the big goal, or what do you actually want? So you can start from both ends, and then we work into the middle.
I sometimes find that breaking it down works for me, but then it ends up being a little bit more time consuming and frustrating in the long run. I'll give you an example. Like once I got like a full load of washing out the washing machine, thinking I need to put this outside. It's a hot day. Can't put the dryer on. It's not really appropriate. And then I'm thinking, oh, but I don't want to put all this washing out. What am I going to do? So I thought, no, come on, out 2 at a time, just do 2. So I did 2, did something else, did 2, did another. And then doing it that way, I managed to get all the washing out. But the thing is, it took me a lot longer than it would have done. I just thought, let's get it all out. But it was what I needed to make that job more manageable.
Yeah, that's a really good tip, I think. Either doing it in that tiny way. And sometimes I think having that really big goal can be really motivating for people, because maybe it's about they know what they want it to look like, or they want to write a book, or they want to do this job. And that can be motivating. But at the same time, like you say, it can also be paralyzing and give you the opposite, where it's such a big, distant goal that you do nothing. So it's getting that balance.
Do you think constructive criticism can be a motivator? Because I can think of 2 times in my life when I received what some may construe as negative feedback. And while it may have put some people off, for me, it was a real wake-up call. One of the examples I use is I met with a literacy agent in London. In typical ADHD fashion, I had lots and lots of ideas and couldn't commit to just one. And I'll never forget what she said to me. She was like, can I just say, anybody can have lots of ideas, but not everybody can write a book? And I thought, oh my gosh, if I don't do something, I'm going to become one of these people who just talks the talk instead of walks the walk. And I think that, combined with COVID and having the time, obviously, because I had to stay in a lot, really motivated me. But do you think constructive criticism, or even harsh criticism to some extent, or do you think that for a lot of people that's quite demoralizing and it doesn't really help the situation? Because I might be just a unique breed.
Yeah, I think it's a really fine line. And one of the things that we do, a coaching program that I offer, is we think about that motivation, and we think about, we don't want to be motivated by guilt and shame and that feeling when you've got somebody coming round and you think, oh no, my house, and you rush around and yes, maybe it works, but actually, wouldn't it be nicer to be motivated by something more positive that feels good? But I think the case you describe, I think that sounds really helpful, because that's not necessarily giving you feelings of negative or saying you're any worse or that you're a bad person, but it's more about a perspective about if you don't take action, you might just end up being somebody who talks about the ideas. So I think, it's a fine line, but I think sometimes things like that can really give you that kick up the bum to think about, if I don't do anything, what's it going to look like?
So that's a really interesting point that you touched upon then. I just want to reiterate that, because I think it's so key to ADHD when you were saying about guilt and shame. And I think a lot of people with ADHD, the guilt and the shame aspects of it is huge. I'm not talking in terms of motivation. I'm just talking about how they feel about themselves and what's going on around them, because a lot of them have had really negative childhoods, or childhoods where their ADHD wasn't necessarily understood. That just creates more chaos, doesn't it? Because in some ways that could be considered a trauma, like not like a trauma in the sense of it's really big and thingy, but an individual trauma where you don't feel accepted, you feel singled out, you feel like you can't be yourself. And that can have massive repercussions in adulthood, can't it? In terms of you, what I hope you don't mind me asking this. Did you feel that you had a positive childhood? Did you feel like your ADHD manifested a lot in childhood, or is it only since you become an adult that it's become more?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think one of the things I try and help people find is that kind of self-compassion, because especially when you have been diagnosed later on, is you do spend your life feeling like you're not quite good enough, you're not fitting in, you're a bit too much, or you're a bit lazier, and you're swinging between these extremes. And I think teaching people that actually having that compassion for yourself, and if there's something you find difficult, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means you can ask for help. And I think when people start to see their struggles in a more objective way and depersonalized, I think it really helps them to actually ask for that help and find those solutions. For me, it's probably been a mixed bag, to be honest. It's certainly given me answers as an adult, and it's made me look at things differently. But I think having the awareness that I have as a coach, I think has helped me to look at things. Not everything's positive, of course, but to leave from things what I would like to. But yeah, it's definitely difficult. And people don't have that self-compassion, and they don't. They just don't value themselves, which I think is the saddest thing. And that's what I really like to help people discover, is their own power, their own value.
That's so powerful, I think. Because I really do feel like they're the key tools for success. It's knowing your value. I think I've actually never met, or it's been rare that I've ever met a person with ADHD who's not been called messy, like in a physical sense. What would you say are like some little ways that would help people to declutter their kind of house or even a room physically?
Yeah, there's a lovely book actually called, I think it's called How to Keep House While Drowning.
Oh, wow.
And it's such a lovely book. It's really gentle. And I think the biggest message throughout the book, and one I try and give, is that whatever your house looks like, it's not a reflection of you morally or as a person's values. So you could live in a pristine house, or you could live in a real cluttered house. Neither of them say anything about your worth or value as a person. So I guess that's what I start with, is having that realization and working out what works for you. Because I think with ADHD, we're a little bit like out of sight, out of mind. So if we try and organize stuff and put stuff away before we've decluttered, it probably won't work, because we don't know what we've got where.
Exactly. So, wow. I think that's given me a real big epiphany there.
Yeah, it's definitely about cutting down on the stuff before you try and tidy or organize. And I think a lot of people think, oh, my house is a mess, I need an organizer. No, you need to get rid of stuff first, because you don't want to be organizing stuff that you actually don't want. So you need to start.
I think of this, and my dad's exactly the same, because I know practically that I need to get rid of stuff. I'm not disputing that whatsoever. But I think because I do have a bad memory, I'm also the overthinking aspect of ADHD, that you always convince yourself, I'm going to need this at some point in the future. It could be the most mundane object, I don't know, a toothpick or something, and you still convince yourself that in 5 months' time you're going to need it, so you can't bin it, kind of thing. Yeah. Do you think that's quite a normal reaction for ADHD?
I think it's normal for a lot of people. And I think there's so much going on in terms of why that's happening. So the first thing to think about when you do decluttering is don't think about it as a whole. Think about it as individual things, one by one. So I try and throw something away each day that isn't just normal rubbish. If you've got a minute, just to have a look around and think, and just pick something. So you really have to go into the minute stuff. Literally, it's item by item. The other thing, and I guess to answer your question about that just in case type of feeling, is it's often linked with with your mindset, whether you're in that scarcity mindset or whether you're in the kind of abundance. And it may be very logical to keep something just in case. it may be that you're holding on to it because there's a fear about
which
letting
really
go.
shows how connected the emotional clutter of ADHD is with the physical mess of ADHD, really, because it's almost like the two are interlinked. Obviously, there's the chaos of not having normal thought process and thought pattern that comes with ADHD, but then it's the emotional side that comes from that. It's just such an holistic condition, isn't it? And this is what a lot of people don't get about ADHD. Unfortunately, it's viewed very much through the lens of education, whereas in terms of what you said, it's very much clearly a holistic condition that affects every aspect.
Yeah. And to let go of things and to declutter, it needs to come from a place of strength. So you can't let go of something if you're already weakened. If you're feeling shut off from the world, not good enough, you're never going to be able to let go of things because you have to hold everything close and tight.
Wow. I feel like we're like in a therapy session here. I'm learning so much.
It's
a massive topic. I'm like, wow, that's so me.
Yeah, it's such a big topic. And I think the trouble is with what people, I guess what we're told and what we know already, we just need to try harder. We need to plan better. We need to organize, and you look for those type of solutions. But a lot of what I talk about is that time management is a bit of a myth because we can't manage time. It's like trying to manage the weather. It doesn't stop. It's about the priorities and what we choose to do with our time. So that's another topic. But I guess in terms of that letting go, you have to know what's coming in its place. So to be able to let go of something, you need to decide, am I happy with an empty space? Am I happy with what's going to come in?
And it all seems to stem, doesn't it, from that inner kind of voice of how you actually feel about yourself and what kind of place you're in. And it links so much, doesn't it, to what you were saying about self-compassion. And I think because of the guilt and shame that we talked about earlier, that a lot of ADHDs do struggle with that self-compassion, which, as you're saying, it's like a cycle, isn't it? It's almost like a cycle that repeats itself. You feel guilt and shame, you can't do anything. Oh, you feel better about yourself, but then there comes the guilt and shame again. And it's almost like you're stuck in a cycle, isn't it? Repeating the same kind of habits.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess you can think of it as in anything that we do, like emotional eating or emotional buying, or all of those habits that we have that kind of soothe ourselves, if you like, that if you don't recognize and see what's happening, it's a bit of a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it really is.
The way our minds work is that we can hyper-focus, which sometimes feels like a bit of a compulsion in that moment.
I love it when I get hyper-focused. I shouldn't do, but I do because I get so much done.
Yeah, but then if somebody tries to pull you out of that premature, So, and I think because we're either a now or a not now type of brain, we either do it now and we drive really far in and we could become an expert on something in 5 minutes. Yeah. Or if we choose not now, who knows when that might come back to us.
Exactly. It's like gone.
So I think all of our peculiarities, if you like, can be strengths and weaknesses depending on that circumstance and what we choose to do. If we choose to focus on something that's not good for us or not healthy or is not going to take us somewhere that's part of our bigger picture, then it's possible that it could take us somewhere negative.
Wow, yeah. So many things you're saying I'm just really taking in because I think it's so interesting when you really dig into where all this is coming from in terms of how big of a condition ADHD is. Now, what I wanted to talk about now is you're obviously a coach. And I find that fascinating because I think anyone who coaches people obviously has got to have a good level of kind of self-awareness and obviously perspective of others. How did you get into coaching? Was it a natural thing or was it something you chose to do or?
Yeah, it started in my workplace about 5 years ago. So I did a taster of coaching. I was in the HR team. So it was, I guess just something that was offered to us. And I was hooked. So I did my first qualification then. And then last year, just starting on my master's in coaching. But to me, I think it was just the power of those conversations. And I've always been somebody who gets energy from others and spending time with others. And if I learn something, or if I feel like I can add value, then I really like to. So I guess the combination of that is what's taken me down the coaching path.
Yeah, it just sounds so. And this is before you got diagnosed with ADHD. Was it through the coaching that you thought, oh, maybe I do have ADHD? Or was that like a kind of natural self-awareness from the coaching? Or had you always thought maybe there's something not quite different?
I guess on reflection, I should have realised, but no, it was actually my daughter mentioned it.
Oh.
And at first I thought, oh, no, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, I never felt like there was something wrong. I'd always felt something different, but I never thought it would be something that could be explained. I just thought it's just how I am. So, yeah, it was only a couple of years ago. And then I'm looking into it. And yeah, that's a bit of a separate part, but then they've converged into the coaching. So
how do you think your ADHD manifests itself more? What are the kind of the worst parts for you? Because I know everyone with ADHD, there's always something within those characteristics they struggle with the most. And I would say for me, it's the losing things. I get so frustrated with myself, which is probably why I'm so organized. But what would you say that you struggle with the most in terms of yours?
So a couple of things. I think firstly, it's been more affected by age.
Oh, yeah.
So,
gosh, I've heard so much about this.
Yeah, and some days it's worse than others. But I think my worst thing is following instructions or doing a task that's quite step by step. That really frustrates me.
Yeah.
And also planning. Something that I learned about myself and planning recently is that if you're going to make a plan and then break it down and then do the actions, it makes me feel quite sad, because by following a plan, you're basically saying no. Everything else on your list, or everything else you've ever wanted to do, because you're committing to doing one particular thing. It's not to say you can't do the other things an hour later, but if you're saying, this is what
you don't like, how it down.
This is what I have to do. By doing that one thing, you have to say not now to everything else.
Yeah.
I encourage people to keep a to-feel list as well as a to-do list.
Yeah.
Often there's emotions that come up that we can't always get to, whether we're with the kids or at work, and actually it's important to come back to those feelings. So
wow, I love that. Yeah, definitely. So if people were interested in your coaching and helping declutter, where would they go to check your kind of program out and things?
Yes, I've got a website, which is spaceforliving.co.uk. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at A Space for Living. And I have a Facebook group, which is a really nice place to be. And you won't be surprised to know that's also called A Space for Living. So that's the phrase to remember. There's a theme. And lots of freebies, lots of tips, lots of,
great
nice conversations.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great. And we hope to have you as a guest on maybe some point in the future.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Who knew that there was so much to having ADHD? Every single one of us who has it, of course. Honestly, I think that was like a mini therapy session for how much I got out of it. So I hope you guys feel the same. Join us next month where we'll be talking to an inspiring woman who is right at the forefront of change for ADHD. She's an ADHD expert court witness who is campaigning for ADHD screening in prisons across the UK, leading us to a very important discussion. Just why is there so many people in prison with ADHD? Catch you next month, and in the meantime, be good to yourself, ADHDers and allies.